Azeez Al-Shaair, linebacker, brought into the Texans in free agency via the Tennessee Titans. But before that, he was with DeMeco Ryans in the San Francisco 49ers. Lot to like about him. I loved his interview. I'm going to play the best answers he gave, or at least the ones most interesting to me. But for those of you unacquainted with him, here's 90 seconds of highlights from the 49ers. We don't need to see him gallivanting around in a Titans uniform. This is from a couple years ago with the 49ers. All right, you can see the type of linebacker he is there. He's an old school mentality dude. You could see why DeMeco Ryans likes to bring him into this swarm mindset. I think Will Anderson would approve. Remember Will Anderson at the Pro Bowl told some players, hey, Texans ain't for everybody. I feel like he feels like the Texans are totally for Azeez Al-Shaair. And there's even more reason for that when you watch some of these answers. The first question that Azeez got yesterday was about whether he had talks with Jimmy Ward about the culture there and what he might like about the Texans.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but it's like even talking when you're competing against the guys. I remember playing these guys twice, and both times just like, even after the game, just chopping up with it was people I didn't even know, talking to Jalen Petrie, after the game, first time. It just was like, it was this weird, like, kind of like mesh that was already there. But I think for them, a lot of the stuff when DeMeco first came in, he's showing all the clips from San Francisco. And obviously myself, as well as the other guys, Jimmy Ward are on those clips. So I think they were just so like familiar with me already, even though I wasn't here, if that makes sense. So it was just already something I think just culture-wise, you could see it, watching the tape, being on the other sideline, talking crap to DeMeco, just give him a hard time. But like you could just see the energy and the kind of like culture that they were creating and that they had. So when I came in, like, it doesn't feel like I'm coming into a team that I've only known for a couple months. It feels like I've been here.
A couple things I love about that answer, and a lot of it goes back to DeMeco Ryans. One is a lot of you subscribe to this channel know how much I love DeMeco's use of teach tapes. Like we are creatures who learn by imitation. From the time we learn how to walk, learn how to talk, everything else. And sometimes we overcomplicate things when we're teaching players skills, when really it's as simple as showing an example of how it's supposed to be done. And DeMeco really uses these teach tapes heavily. And Al-Shaair is a guy that he's pointed out as like, hey, look, this guy does it the way that I want done. The second part of it that I really, really love is because this brought back memories of when I was a player. One of the coolest things that ever happens is when you're a veteran player and a young guy comes up to you after the game from the opposing team who might play your position or play defense and says, man, I've watched you and I think I really respect what you do and I'm trying to emulate you in some way. It's such a unique compliment that you can't get from anybody else. You can't get from the media. You can't get from fans. Like, it's just such an informed opinion. And I remember when I was a young player too, going up to older players, or when I was an older player, but especially when I was a young player, going up to some of the less heralded guys in the league. There was a guy, John Perella, who played nose tackle for the San Diego Chargers, who was an absolute beast. And he just did things the right way. And you notice these things, but they're not the types of things that get noticed or picked up by even really informed football people, because that's not what they're looking for. So I like that Azeez Al-Shaair maybe was a little bit of we were the beneficiary of a little bit of that soft tampering that players do. Just like the players are allowed to tamper. Players are allowed to say, hey, I respect your game, man. But also, obviously, in trying to build the right kind of culture, this is a guy that comes in, A, knows the scheme and has thrived in the scheme before, but also, B, on all of the off the field stuff, the way he conducts himself in meetings and everything. I mean, DeMeco just gushes about him. Next question was about Jamal Hill, Texans 6th round draft pick, who had been a safety and he's learning how to transition to linebacker. What kind of advice can he give to Jamal Hill?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just like slowing everything down, breaking it down, because when you're making decisions from 10, 12 yards deep, you have a chance to make a false step. When you're 5 yards deep, that timing, it happens a lot quicker. So just trying to get them to slow the game down. You got 30,000 people. You got the trainer talking to you. You might think it's a coach. You have no clue when you first come in as a rookie, especially in a place like this. There's so much support everywhere for the guys, which is great. But in that same tune, when you're a rookie coming in, it can be so overwhelming. So I talked to him, and I talked to all of them, but talking to him and just try to just get him to like calm himself down, slow it down, just get back to the basics, work the techniques that we're doing in individual, apply that to the field, because for a while you won't be able to let your instincts kind of take over until you constantly do the same boring, repetitive thing over. And, people try to see like, how do you be great? Like, what does it look like? It looks boring because you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And if you could perfect those little things over and over and over, and you're doing good at that, that's how you become, this great player, because you're just doing the same technique that you were taught from day one of OTAs.
Okay, two things there. One, he talks about the concept of, basically going slow so you can go fast. It's kind of like the line from Cars where sometimes you got to turn right to go left. It's counterintuitive, but you got to slow down to go fast. There was something I heard a Navy SEAL say once, which was slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And that's exactly it. The closer you get to the football on defense, including at nose tackle and inside linebacker, you've got to be on point with that first step. Because if you take a step to the right, but the play's to the left, all of a sudden you're 2 steps behind, because you got to retake that step to get back to square one and then take another step. So it really is a matter of just being on point with your reads and your keys. And that's something that the Texans linebacking corps struggled with last year. Christian Harris got a lot better at it as the year went along, but you look at some of the struggles in play action. It's not just the defensive backs that struggle there. The linebackers are so key in being able to come up and play the run, but also be cognizant and figure out when it's a fake. Like, oh, wait a second. This is don't bite on the run. So slow down to go fast. That's just it's a hard and counterintuitive thing to do. And it's nice to have veterans who get it and understand how important it is to be, I don't want to say perfect, but nails. I'll say nails from square one. The other part is just doing all the boring stuff well. And that's something, man, in any sport. You just know all the kids want to learn, like, defensive ends want to learn 29 pass rush moves, when no, in reality, the really good pass rushers get really, really good at a couple of moves. And once you're really, really, really good at a couple moves, which involves a lot of boring repetition and drill, then you can start to add to your repertoire. But likewise, just those things that it takes to be a good linebacker, especially a good Mike linebacker, Will linebacker, is that mental work in the film room, closing your eyes and visualizing, really understanding tendencies and all of that. And that's just, I think, one of the things that DeMeco really loves about him. I'll play a clip from DeMeco at the end, talking exactly about Azeez Al-Shaair.
How much did your prior relationship with DeMeco help you in aiding your decision to come here? Was it difficult the first time? Because I know they were interested in you the first time you were free agent after leaving San Francisco as well.
Yeah, it was tough for sure. I think there's like this dynamic of, DeMeco is somebody who, I've seen like a father figure. I think just our relationship over those 4 years and how it grew. I mean, we done had laughs, cries, and cussed each other out, everything in between, over that time span. And he's taught me so much. He's one of the best coaches I've ever had. So it was definitely like green light, no brainer going there last year, truthfully. But when you talk about from the business standpoint of it, just making the best decision financially for myself, and obviously the team as well. Me and Nick don't have any type of, rapport other than DeMeco at that time. So I think I had stuff that I had to prove on my own. I think people in the building knew who I was and what I could be, but nobody outside of that building truly knew, like, hey, can he do it by himself? Can he go off and be this player on his own? So I think it just didn't work out from that perspective. But went to Tennessee. It was a great group of guys that I was able to play with, and got to be with Rand. So that was pretty cool too. And had a good year there, and things worked out now. So I think. It worked out how it was supposed to, for sure. But
okay, this is big because I saw some Tennessee bloggers took that as that, hey, the Titans were his backup plan last year, that this is how it was meant to be in the mind of Al-Shaair. And that's fine. If it tweaks Titans fans, then so be it. Sorry about it, man. We got your guy. Next question was just his impressions of CJ Stroud from last year.
So, you study him, but I didn't get a chance to play against him. And then that second time we came and played him, which is, I think it was like 2 weeks apart, and he played, and I think that was his first game back as well. And just seeing him move around, I thought he did a really good job of his progressions and his reads. And there was times where I'm thinking he's about to throw me one, and he's getting off that and just throwing the little check downs. Like I said, the little things, taking the boring plays, and just thinking and ducking. I mean, they worked this down the field when I was in Tennessee that game. The entire time it was like 12-play drive, just going. Oh, score a touchdown. So, it was really like encouraging just to see like a young player be able to take that step. In year one. And, I remember after the game, sitting there talking, chopping it up, just, having good conversations. Similar, like I said earlier, it just felt like I was already like a teammate, even though I wasn't on the team. It was so weird.
God bless the soft tamper that is allowed by players and active players. I think CJ Stroud and Will Anderson are awesome ambassadors for the Texans around the league. But it is also cool to hear guys who have played against CJ talk about how advanced he is as a rookie. Remember a couple months ago, I played you that clip from Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed, the linebackers from the Colts, who just their jaws kind of dropped in amazement at how advanced CJ is mentally. And that's the part that makes me so confident in CJ Stroud. It's not like some rookie quarterbacks, most rookie quarterbacks who have really impressive rookie years. A lot of it's based on their athleticism. And even though CJ runs and scrambles a whole lot better than people thought he could, yada, 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 it's his brain first and foremost that's going to set him apart. And it's the thing that a lot of the guys who flash with their athleticism early on fail to develop. And CJ's already made more development mentally through the course of his rookie season than a lot of quarterbacks do in their first 3 years. It's plain and evident. It's really cool. Next, he was asked about proving himself and whether he felt like he was able to prove himself last year or how he proved himself last year.
Just wanting to see the consistency. I think in this league, you got to be consistent. And when you're sporadically getting snaps just based off of, the pecking order, I was the undrafted guy. Dre was a 5th rounder. Fred was 3rd rounder the year prior. And all of us just continued to blossom, obviously some earlier than the others. So I think being real with myself, I understood how that looked. Even though I believed in myself already, it was like, okay, I gotta be able to go out there and, compete and show them like, hey, I can be an every down linebacker, stay on the field. I mean, I played over 1,000 snaps last season, and was one of the tops in the league in tackles. And a lot of my tackles I made were in the run game were within 3 yards. Is over 100 and something plus tackles, and just in the run game alone within that small 4-yard box window. So I think just showing people that I can do everything. And obviously sideline to sideline is what I've always done, and who I am. But I just think like I said, the sky's the limit for myself. I have high expectations for myself. DeMeco coming in, he was hard on me and Dre Greenlaw, and I'm grateful for it because now there's nobody that can outdo the standard that I already have for myself. So
a couple things about that. One is that, man, I love it when I see guys who have the appropriately sized and placed chip on their shoulder, where it needs to be about, man, I got to prove it to these guys. All right, I'm gonna have limited opportunities. I'm gonna take every opportunity I can. I'm gonna prove it to them that I can do it. Versus, oh, I'm getting screwed over because I'm not getting the opportunity to prove it to myself. Like it's toxic thinking, and it's important again when you come back to culture to teach these young guys that look, you're gonna have limited opportunities. You get 10 snaps, then bust your ass on those 10 snaps. The other side of it that I really like to hear that he cares about is that it's never total tackles. Nobody gives a damn. Like, you tell me that somebody led the league in tackles or something. It's like, all right, let me watch and see what kind of tackles they were, because we've all watched teams where a linebacker has a boatload of tackles, but they're all for like 5 and 10 yard gains. So that's great. Looks great in the tackle column in the stat sheet. But are they quality tackles? Are you coming up and, like Azeez said, within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage? And you see a lot of that. Like, the highlights are the highlights, but you see that from play to play exactly how consistently he is up around the line of scrimmage without abandoning his pass responsibilities. We've had some linebackers in the past who might have been really good at getting a bunch of TFLs, but meanwhile on pass plays, the poor safety's out there trying to cover 2 different people because the linebacker abdicated his responsibility. Don't have to worry about that with Azeez. Next question, he was asked about the family atmosphere and the culture, and if he feels like the Texans have that family atmosphere.
I think I use the same analogy all the time. This is kind of how I broke it down to people in general, but specifically in a team setting. And when you talk about like family and that camaraderie and that bond and that love that you build, that you really build starting right now and this time right now, but it's like I compare it to, like, let's say you have some important meeting or something that you're running late to, and you're driving in your car and you see a homeless person on the side of the street. You want to give them some money. You might give them $1, you might give them some food, but that's about it. But if you saw your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, some of us don't like our brothers and sisters, but you love them, so you will go out your way to do whatever it takes. You forget all about your meeting to make sure that your mom has some food, a shelter. You take her to your house, clean her up, make sure she's good. Like, you completely forget about everything, and you're willing to do anything for somebody you care about. So when you say that in a football setting, the family and the camaraderie, it all matters when things get tough, because when it's good, I don't care who you are. So we all good. But when things get rough, that's when you find out the true character. So when you already have a foundation, of team bonding, of, love for one another, when stuff starts to get tough, like, we good. Like, hey, I got your back. I know you got mine. I'm willing to do stuff that maybe I don't really want to do right now, or maybe I'm not feeling it right now. You can turn this hit down. I'm gonna try to go blow this guy up, because I know we need to make this play. I need to make this play not just for me, but for the guy next to me. So I think that's why it's so important.
I think this is where DeMeco's influence really comes through. Not that Azeez Al-Shaair didn't feel that way before or wouldn't feel that way without DeMeco, but look, I've been in plenty of meetings where coaches get up and talk about being committed to your teammates and caring about each other and all that. But, like, in your mind, you're like, this guy's full of crap. This guy's the most selfish, driven for himself, career motivated dude there is. And you're sitting here talking to me about family. I think with DeMeco, it's very genuine. And when DeMeco talks about it, not just once in a team meeting, but continually, and guys know that he's genuine, it really brings that out in the press conferences and in the interviews. I think, like, Will Anderson was going to be who he was regardless of where he went, but Will Anderson just talks so openly about loving and helping and caring about everybody in the organization and all of that. I think partly just because it's encouraged and because he feels really comfortable talking about that aspect of it. And this is where teams take on the character of their head coach. Like, teams take on the personality of their head coach. And I've played for multiple different personality coaches, and I feel like there's a certain part of you that also becomes like almost like dissociative identity disorder. You become a different personality under a certain type of personality. And, like, DeMeco's got a pretty good personality. I feel good about it. Speaking of DeMeco, here's DeMeco on Azeez Al-Shaair.
With Azeez, and the first thing that I remember about Azeez is just one of the smartest players I interviewed when I first interviewed him at the Combine several years back. Very sharp player. He could draw up the entire defense, talk about blitzes in and out. He's a very smart player. Right? And still the same way today. Brings a very calming presence to our defense. Just his ability to communicate, right, and run the show as a Mike linebacker. he allows the other guys around him, right, to be calm and to play faster because of what he brings, right, to the table when it comes to communicating. But not only that, communicating, but he can also go make the plays, right, and that's what you have to have at that Mike linebacker position, and that's what he can do. Azeez he's a tremendous, as I mentioned about Dalton, he's a tremendous leader as well. He's a leader of men, and I'm excited to have him on our roster and just seeing him, right, continue to build the relationships with all of the guys in our locker room. I think guys will really gravitate toward Azeez and see that he has a lot to bring.
So look, it's a press conference. Doesn't tell you a damn thing in the grand scheme of things, but the film tells me that Azeez Al-Shaair is a very explosive and plays sideline to sideline and has an appetite, a lust for violence, football violence, which is something that DeMeco goes for. DeMeco lives in those two worlds of gentleman off the field, but wants to be an absolute monster on the football field when he was a player, or now in what he looks for on his defensive players, especially swarm mentality and all that. But I also think the football IQ part of it, at middle linebacker especially, is just so big and so hard to quantify that DeMeco, having had firsthand experience with Al-Shaair in San Francisco and knowing what he's all about, it makes me feel that much better about it. So I'm Seth Payne, played for the Texans a long time ago. Now I do sports radio on Sports Radio 610 in Houston, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday. Please follow the YouTube channel, share with a friend, subscribe, all of that. Everybody have an awesome day.